For the last Nitro Nights episode of this year, 2021, we actually got James Baldwin in the house, and we will talk about that one big question in sim racing. No, not which steering wheel you should get for Christmas, but instead, which sim is actually the most real one. Welcome back everyone to Overtake at the Nitro Nights. You might wonder, René, why so serious today? And that's pretty simple to answer. It's close to Christmas, and that means this is our last show of 2021. Don't be sad though, we will go out in a bang, so no worries about that. But before we dive into our cool topic for today, there's one serious thing we have to talk about. And that's because I see the YouTube stats. I know that not all of you out there that are watching are subscribed. So better hit the subscribe button now, ring the bell. Otherwise you get on the naughty list for Santa for this year. But back to the actual topic of Nitro Nights, as today we will dive into that one big question that we all saw on every single platform that gets opened up in every sim racing group and Facebook every single day. And that is the one and only, which sim is actually the most real one? For that, we will talk with James Baldwin and also with some other guests around and with me, actually, as we will discuss and find out what is the most realistic sim and why.
Realism in racing is always a hotly debated topic. Every game would love to say on the box that it revolutionizes the feeling of the car and delivers a realism like never before. But every racing fan has their own favorite sim that feels the most realistic to them. So what makes driving a sim feel realistic? Driving isn't just driving. A lot is needed to make it feel like you're sitting in a real car. There's always a physics engine doing a lot of work in the background, calculating the amount of downforce that comes with what speed, taking the car setup and model into account. But that obviously isn't everything, as the track condition with all its bumps also needs to be taken into account, as well as the tires simulated by the engine, in order to bring a version to life that's as close as possible to the real deal. Calculations are only half the issue, as the driver also needs to feel everything. The physics engine can't directly give all the information to the player, so it still needs to be translated into haptic feedback for the wheel, pedals, and whatever else is hooked up to the game. This may be the hardest part for many sims, as games like Project Cars 2 have a lot of data simulated in the background and just can't translate it all across to the player in a meaningful way. That's why ACC aims for a different approach, going with the philosophy of only outputting what a real racer would be able to feel instead of trying everything that's happening in and around the car. No matter how though, if you can't translate everything simulated to the player, the game won't even come close to feeling like sitting in a real car. So making a game feel realistic goes a lot deeper than what many people might think it is on the surface.
And we're back at the couch section, so I can finally sit down and have a chat with our guest of today's episode, that is James Baldwin. James, great to have you here.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, René. And I mean, I've seen the show on YouTube, and this studio is nuts. I'm very impressed.
Thanks for that. I did not pay him for that. I swear.
No, that's a genuine reaction. It's crazy.
I did not pay. So, first of all, when introducing you, nowadays it gets a bit more complicated, right? Like back in the days, it was like the sim racer, James Baldwin. You're doing rear racing now. You did British GT in 2019, right? So is hybrid racer now that what we should say?
Whatever you want. I mean, this year it's been more sim racer. I've not done too much real racing. But yeah, I suppose I am a real racer. I did a season of racing. I've got a license, that will last for a while. But I'm just me, mate. I'm just trying to get back into real racing, doing as much sim racing as possible. Just driving is what I love doing. So,
talking about getting back into sim racing, into real racing, not into sim. You're there already. But what do you do next year? What do you have planned?
Plans? Well, I have plans to, hopefully to make a step up from where I came from. So British GT was what I did. GT World Challenge would be the logical next step. My kind of goal in real racing is to do Le Mans, or hopefully win Le Mans. It's quite a big one, but you got to aim high.
You went for higher than me. I only want to do the Nürburgring 24, but Le Mans is way more
it's not problematic. Bad though, is it? So yeah, GT World Challenge would be my logical next step. We're trying to organise how that happens. Plans are plans that don't necessarily translate into the real thing. So hopefully that comes off.
It's nearly Christmas, so maybe you get that as a gift, right?
Oh, that'd be nice.
You never know.
Come on, Santa.
You know what we got you here today, right? Because I thought people hating you anyway already because they're jealous, right?
Hating me?
Yeah, so I thought
really?
if we discuss about which sim is the better one, then it doesn't really add to all the hatred if you go for the wrong sim, you know? I thought that would be the best way of doing it. But I said the big topic is that, which sim is the most realistic one? Is there one that got it all right? But maybe let's first talk about what makes a game, a sim, however we want to call it, actually a realistic title.
Well, there's different elements to it. It's not one thing. There's different elements to it. I suppose the main thing is the physics, the car physics, how the car feels. And for me, I don't really have to think too much about it. I know ACC in terms of GT cars, GT3, GT4, GTC, Porsche Cup. I think it's the most realistic. I mean, I can't say it is because I'm not speaking facts, although I am. But my opinion is that's the most realistic. It feels the most realistic, especially with the new update that came out a few weeks ago. Of course, it could be better, but I don't think it's actually physically possible to get it 100%. But other sims come close. rFactor, iRacing. I've never played it, but Automobilista 2 apparently is not too bad. I've not played it.
It's on the Madness engine, so it's basically Project Cars, but with changes in the
maybe
physics.
not then.
Just letting you know.
But those are the three in there. ACC, iRacing, rFactor 2. They're the main three, in my opinion.
Okay, so you said already, obviously the car feel is important, and you're right, the 118 patch for ACC, that really helped. Right? We talked about that before the show already, which was the wobbling when under braking, right? Because the car is never stable with the big, especially a monoblock brakes in the front or whatsoever. If you really launch it into the brakes, you feel how the car is moving on the rear. Yeah. So you can definitely confirm that to everyone out there that was wondering, oh, it's now completely different, slower in the GT3. Is that what you feel when you race?
I mean, certainly from the update, that the main thing that I noticed was how the car behaves under braking and when you come off the brake. So in ACC before, you could basically go into a braking zone, slam the brake, no trail braking, just come off it, and the car would not really move, and you could just turn in, it would grip. Now, like real life, you brake. If you go off the brake without trail braking, it's going to start twitching around, and if you turn in, you're going to oversteer, and it's going to be a mess. So in that sense, it's worse because you have less grip and it feels worse, but it's realistic. So that they've improved the game or the sim in that way. You agree with that as well. They've obviously done other things in the game to update it to make it more realistic, little things.
Yep.
So another one is in ACC with the McLaren, I always, on the exit of corners, go to TC0, which is the most unrealistic thing in a GT3 car you can do. Now they've put a thing in the game where if you do that, the TC kicks in, you end up losing lap time. So they stop people doing that, which is not, it's not realistic. So I like where they're going with it. They're making it more realistic every year. So
I mean, I like that there's now rotation to the car, right? It's like, for example, Nürburgring GP where there's a shortcut when you're not running down to Dunlop Corner. There's like a short version they use in the VLN races, for example.
Yeah.
I use that when coming off brakes to get the rear around, to not rotate everything with steering, right? And I have the feeling now that Sims finally get there where we can use that, right? Where we can rotate the car in many different ways.
Not just with the steering.
Yeah, not just with the steering, right? Because there's way more to driving.
Yeah.
But besides the feel of cars, what about the dynamic of everything? Because from my perspective, and that's always something I not hate it, but back in the days when we had games that didn't have weather or track temperature changes and all that, it was almost hard for me because it was basically hot lapping every single lap, even during a race.
Yeah.
And that's not how it is in real life, isn't it?
Every lap is different in terms of the temperature, the weather, the grip levels, the bits on track like bits of car or carbon fiber and stuff like that. Every lap is an adventure in that sense. And ACC have definitely taken a step forward in that sense. I'm not trying to sell the game, by the way.
Yeah, I will definitely switch the topic to another game right after this.
I'm just talking about ACC because it's the one I play the most. But the weather in this update is more random. The grip level is... So you can take more racing lines than just the conventional one, which is sort of realistic. I think the game could be better in the sense, when you go offline, you're on the marbles. You have no grip going into the next corner. In the wet as well. You never use you very rarely use the racing line you use in the dry, in the wet. Because
which doesn't work.
Yeah, but in ACC, you use it, which is wrong.
Yeah,
but
true.
As I say, they can't get it 100% right.
Maybe we should explain that real quick, actually, regarding wet line or racing line, using the racing line in the wet. the thing is, because I saw that so often people are getting it wrong. It's not just the rubber on the track. It's also when tracks are used and you always drive right line, the tarmac changes. It gets kind of like round shaped. So the tarmac itself loses grip when there's no rubber on it. Means even if there's no race before, the racing line mostly is still more slippery in the rain than wet line when you actually not use the race line.
Yeah, because of the shape of it.
Yeah, because it changes the tarmac so much, right? I saw that there are many people out there that are not sure, and I always get that question when we're actually at real tracks.
Yeah.
It's like wet line is nearly always the way to go. There are a few
It depends.
changes in
depends
between.
on the corner, doesn't it? You know?
There's some corners where you can't. I mean, there's not enough, like...
And the car you're in as well.
Yeah, I know 3 corners in Nordschleife, for example, that I can't do wet line just because it does not work with the corner. But that's another adaptability thing. It's like you always have to know and how it feels that day.
Yeah, and I found at Snetterton in British GT in the wet, because it's just what you do in real life. You brake offline, then you cut across the racing line, and then you take the outside of the corner.
Yep.
But there was this one corner, turn 2, the hairpin. And one lap I thought, you know what, why not? And I braked online.
Doesn't cost much when I screw up. Let's do it.
But there was
why
a big
not try?
grass field. I weren't going to hit anything. And I broke on the racing line in the dry, took the wet line, and then used the racing line in the dry on the way out. It was like half a second quicker. But in other corners, that wouldn't be the case. Every corner's different. So it'd be nice to have it in a sim like that. But, you know.
I think it will be very problematic. But hey, we're getting better stuff over the years, so I'm absolutely sure one day we'll have that. Let's try to get away from ACC, because I think people got that now that you really like it.
Right now. Yeah.
And I have to say, I like it as well. So let's try something else. What's with iRacing, for example? We know it's a big title, and I always say, and sometimes I think I get a lot of hatred for that, I say iRacing is so liked by a lot of the real drivers as well, not due to it being the most real one, but being the one giving the most competition. And we all know racing drivers, we're all competitive. We want to compete.
Want to race.
Yeah, what's your take on iRacing and their car feel, especially their brake feel, I have to say?
Yeah, I've got a decent iRating, so I've played enough of it to, I think...
1,500 isn't decent.
Times 3.
Oh, really? God. Now I feel bad to go back.
But the physics, I mean, I don't know. The brake is the weirdest bit, because you're never on 100% brake, which is not realistic, even in a GT car. The rest of the physics, I mean, it's a simulator. It's good. The way the tyres work, you know, sometimes in some cars is very good. You have to warm them up before you get to your optimal grip and temperature. But the main thing about iRacing I like is, as you say, the competition system. You can just log on, go into a race with people roughly at your level, and just, they don't always end well, don't get me wrong, but it's easy. You know, if I was to say to a random person who's like, how do I get into sim racing? Just go to iRacing. That's what I'd say.
Easy way. You don't have to look for communities and all that stuff.
No, when you get into that, it's really confusing. You don't know what's the right community and how do you sign up. It's just a nightmare. Whereas iRacing make it very easy. And I mean, I never play it, I'll be honest, but I have, and it's good fun. So
I did a lot of oval racing, I have to admit.
So did I, last year.
I loved it, because you don't have to learn the tracks that long. You just go in there and race.
Yeah, you know,
awesome.
That is good fun. Indy 500 I did. It was
I only did NASCAR, so I never touched any cars so far.
Crazy. It was mental.
I might get into that then. Okay, so we got the car feel. It's important. Brake is very important, as we know. Car dynamics. So if you could choose from all the games, obviously you would choose a lot of the elements in ACC already. But is there something in any of the other sims that you think, hey, they got that nailed? Could we not take that and put it to ACC, for example?
Yeah, I suppose in terms of making the perfect simulator, the perfect game, the problem with ACC is that it's not easy to use compared to iRacing to find races. It's lacking a bit of content, so it only does GT cars.
I mean, it is a franchise and IP thing, right?
Yeah, lacking's probably the wrong word, but you know, it doesn't have the diversity of an iRacing or an rFactor, or the modability of a Assetto Corsa, the regular one. So I'd say the physics, ACC, especially with the new update, the content of Assetto Corsa or rFactor, the competition system of iRacing, graphically, I don't know. ACC is pretty good. It could be better. Project Cars 2 graphically was really good, I thought. Do you remember back in the day?
Yeah, I worked
For the
back
time
then
as well,
on-
like 2018,
Yeah, I worked on the esports program for it, and it looked great. Especially as we all know, most of the games look great when the sun comes down.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's a
Which
good point, yeah.
which I every single time I praise that because we didn't have that back in the days. We didn't even had translucent windows. So Live for Speed S1 didn't have them. So I love that.
I
we
don't
know
go back that far, unfortunately.
You're not that old yet, right?
No, I only got into it in 2017. Project Cars 1 was my first game.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
Project
So-
Cars 2 was my main one, my first main one.
Oh wait,
and you were
did
doing
I
the casting for it.
Yes, I saw you there the first time. I remember.
Yeah.
True.
I knew you before you knew me, mate. Trust me.
So I'm the
it-
famous
the-
one. Why do you get the GT3 seat and not me then?
I got lucky.
Kind of true, but you deserve it. So don't get that wrong. You definitely deserve
So
it.
there was a finals in Austria, Rallycross.
Oh, that was the A1 esports series.
Yeah, I came second, mate, and you were casting it
True.
with Luke Crane.
Yep.
So-
Actual Vision.
Yeah, that was my first like LAN event. It was brilliant.
Oh yeah. We had the big drama back then because third and fourth crashed, and it was about the money.
It was a lot of money.
Yeah. If
I
they-
came second and won €4,000. And at that moment, I was
Nice.
like, "That's it. I'm taking sim racing seriously." Like,
But is it like for you then? When we're now at sim racing, and nowadays when I see new drivers coming in, they obviously see the pro side nowadays, right? While when I started, that wasn't a thing. Obviously, we all dreamed about one day making money with sim racing, but it wasn't our. That wasn't a reason for us to come in. Do you think that's something bad that people so soon concentrate on? Hey, I want to make this my job.
that's a good point. I never actually thought of that. I suppose that's the same in anything in life. If you go into it with the intention of making money, is it the right approach? Probably not. I didn't do it to. I never thought I could make a job of it.
Yeah.
I did it because I used to do karting and I wasn't doing it anymore, and I wanted to fill that void. So, yeah. But when people see, like a Jarno Opmeer winning F1 esports and getting all that prize money and other people like that, or a GT3 seat, it's hard to not go into it without wanting that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
Because
I'm just
they're naturally going to be a
wondering-
bit jealous. I sound bad for saying it, but if I saw someone doing that,
Yeah.
I would be jealous. And then
No,
I'd be
I
like,
totally get that. I mean, I have to admit, I started competitive sim racing. Like, I was driving on public, which is kind of what I miss nowadays. Like, back in the days, we just went on public service, and if we had to do 8 restarts before we made it through turn 1, it was still fun, right? And nowadays, I wonder if people are too early, instead of concentrating on driving, already trying to figure out how to make a living out of it and how to make a career out of it. And sometimes I think that's sad because it's the driving that we enjoy, right?
yeah, it's good to be determined and have a goal
Definitely,
in anything you do. But I think those who enjoy driving will be quicker. Do you know what I mean? Those
I would guess so, yeah.
Those who just do it to try and make a name for themselves, but don't actually enjoy driving, well, they're never going to be at the top anyway. So all the top guys, they're real racers at heart. That they enjoy driving, I think. So
I hope so. But I
hope so.
I
I
have
mean-
to admit, I saw a broadcast back then. Broadcasts were a rare thing back in the days. That was before YouTube was everything, and Twitch. There was no Twitch back then, actually. I saw Nils Naujoks actually driving for in faculty back then, and that was the first time that I saw a sim title or a racing title because I was doing competitive Need for Speed in the beginning, Underground 1 back then. And,
what a game!
Yeah, then I saw them having liveries, with like sponsors on and Neil's name on the car, and I was like,
So wait, Nils
damn, I
is
want
playing
that.
Need for Speed.
No,
Underground
Live for
1.
Speed. Live for Speed.
Oh, Live for Speed. Sorry.
And it was the first title for me with liveries. Obviously, I played Microcross Grand Prix and all that stuff, but I never thought about it competitively besides like licensed games like the F1 games back then.
Yeah.
And then I saw them having like their car with their own sponsors, and I was like, I want that.
No way.
I want my name on such a car and stuff like that. And that's why I got into competitive sim racing. So there are different ways of getting into it, probably.
What year was that?
What year?
Yeah.
Wait, I think it was 13 back then. I'm born 88.
2001.
Yeah. I had my first TV show about sim racing in 2004.
Blimey. I was going to swear, but I held it back. That is a long time.
Yeah,
That's
sim
20
racing is
years
around
ago.
for a long time. Yeah.
20 years ago. That is. I just can't imagine it back then,
You guys have way better now. You got all the different titles.
Yeah.
Millions of them.
Amazing hardware. Like, Wow.
You don't want to see my first wheel compared to what you guys are.
I would like to see it, actually. You should get it as a prop.
You have to race it on then, and then we see how you do.
Oh, that would be great.
No force feedback. It's just a round steering wheel. Plastic pedals. But no, enough of that. James, I'm really grateful that you joined us. That was a lot of fun.
No worries.
And we
Pleasure.
have Christmas, so give us a message out to all the sim racers. What should they hope for next year?
Wow. What, for me or for sim racing
you,
in general?
for them, for everyone.
Well, for me, hopefully I'll be real racing again and sim racing as much as possible and more, winning stuff, and that's what I want to do.
Winning.
That's the goal. That's the goal. But the main thing is to get back on the real track and kind of continue that story, represent sim racing in that way. But I suppose sim racing next year looks exciting. I don't actually know what's going to happen, but I think it's just going to be more of the same, more growth, bigger championships coming out, the prize pools are going to go up, the audiences are going to go up, hopefully. So it's exciting. I don't know how long this can go on for, to be honest, but you mentioned there it started way before.
We have a bit of travel already.
Yeah.
Journey.
So it's about time I had a good amount of exposure on it. So hopefully it's going to be a good year.
All right. Thank you very much. And it's just one thing to say at the end, I know what it's saying, that is bring us more realism. That's it. That's not only the end of the show, but even the end for the last episode of this year. But no worries, we will be back in the new year with even more content for you. Till then, let's discuss what sims are the most realistic down in the comments below. My name is René, and I'll see you guys there.
Woohoo! Go on, René.
Thank you so much for watching today's episode. If you like this one, why not check out our last one where we had a retro perspective about Lamborghini's The Real Race and what makes it one of the most unique events of the year. And the other ones, where is it?
Or check out our Dream Team series where we took some of your favorite content creators and let them race each other in one series. Enjoy watching and see you next time.